This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. As always, we are here on a Wednesday afternoon. And, of course, it's exclusive on the Listener app. And as I look around, I've got Daisy Thomas, Damien Barrett, Wayne Carey. Hello, Daisy.
G'day, Joey. G'day, gentlemen. Good to be back again on a Wednesday. It's just a nice middle part of the week that gets you going, doesn't it, Duck? It's always a good part.
Just noticed you got the boots on too, Daisy.
I just got something on after this that I'd present nicely for, Joey.
Give us what do you got? Why have you got the big boots on?
No, it's just a little bit of A to B.
You're going to a farm?
I was going to say,
Are you doing something at a farm?
No, I'm actually not. They're the RMs. They're quite fashionable.
Are they?
Yeah.
We were meant to be going to a lunch, which I was looking really forward to. We're going to have a little bonding session
were.
in
We were gonna have a
the
steak
Midweek Rub.
At the grill on the hill there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately...
And Joey's got something else on.
Yes, trying to help out people. Sorry about that, guys. We'll do it another time.
We'll wait for your availability because we didn't want to do it without you, Joey.
Thank you very much. Good teamwork, Damo. How
Good
are
to be
you,
here,
Duck?
Joey.
You're good?
Boys. No, I'm excited about another good round of footy. Melbourne's just starting to get a little bit fresh, so the fire's starting to get lit at home, and it's a real feel of winter now, isn't it? Feels like we're right in the heart, as you normally do in May.
It is getting darker earlier, getting darker. Yep. Sooner when you wake up in the morning and it's a bit dark and it's cold, Daisy.
It is.
You've got the boots on.
Yep.
Just go into hibernation for a little bit.
We're on air. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. We don't have a lot to talk about off the top, so we're going to get into the footy news, Damo. Because before we do most of the news, let's just touch on the Bombers and the Eagles because they've been the big story to come out of the week. So firstly, Essendon. It's been a lot made of Ben Rutten and the Essendon Footy Club. Damo, what's your take? And then we'll get the boys' expert opinions.
It just appears to be a very broken footy club right now, doesn't it? I know that if you go back to this corresponding period last year, they went into round 8, as we're up to this week, Duck, with a 2-6 scoreline. We know what happened thereafter. They got on a surge, got into a final, and were okay in the first half against a grand final team in the Western Bulldogs in that final. But nothing's worked for them since halftime of that game. The only win they've got to this point of this year, Days, is the narrow win, and that could have gone either way to it, clearly, against Adelaide. And they seem to be actually getting worse as the season's progressing, which is a bigger problem.
I know we spoke about it the other week, Duck. We were after a bit of transparency and honesty, and I don't feel like, and we're never going to get that to the full extent of it. I feel like at the minute you're getting every cliche under the book from Rutten in his press conferences, and you think back to coaches who've been under the pump, David Teague, Brendan Bolton, it's almost trending down those sort of areas for mine where you sit there and you're like, mate, you're not providing any light or any reasons. You're just, rolling out the stuff from the handbook.
I'd argue that they've been the biggest disappointment of the year. Now, everyone will say, what about your Kangaroos and all that? Well, let's be honest. I expect
West Coast is the other team in
West
that
Coast have got reasons. Kangaroos, we know where they were going to finish at the start of the year, so the expectations were exactly where they should be, and that's at the bottom. They should be more competitive. But for me, when you look at the reason we got so excited, you got Cox, they've unearthed young Martin. I know Jones has been out injured, but they've got this young talent that sort of shot through the clouds last year, and we thought, okay, they played finals, so we expected them to just improve off the back of that. Just goes to show you that if you think at any stage, no matter how good you are as a young fella, and how good a season you had in your first year, and how much talent you've got, if you don't put in the hard work and you think it's just going to happen, footy will bite you fair on the backside.
So I have to ask that. You said about Ben Rutten. Does he know what the issue? Like he maybe doesn't know why it's happened, but I think it's clear that it's mental, right? We can all agree. So I want to ask this to both of you. Do you think there's an element of potentially going back to the end of last season, and this applies to probably GWS as well? So GWS and Essendon limp into the finals. They sneak in. Is there an element of they get a little bit complacent? They think they're maybe going better than they are, and you compare that to two teams that just missed out in Fremantle and St Kilda. So they miss out on finals.
Hunger.
So they go into the preseason with a completely different mindset, and we see how Fremantle and St Kilda have started this year. Can that be a real thing?
It is a real thing.
I think at the time, Matty Lloyd was the one that said that he had concerns that they've got there too soon. And I was thinking at the time, mate, what are you talking about? If you can get the opportunity to play in any final, great experience, that statement's been proven very accurate because it looks like that's what's happened. They've got a little bit complacent. They haven't quite taken it to the level that they needed to.
Yep.
Just back to the point, if Rutten doesn't exactly know the answers, and that's why he's coming out with the sort of the convoluted and vague answers, that's a huge issue within itself.
Doug, you mentioned Martin before.
Geez, he looks good.
He wasn't an Essendon listed player until about 3 weeks before the season started. I mean, and that says a bit about where they've got to, given they've come off a finals performance. And the other thing with Stringer too, he's now out for an indefinite period. I say indefinite; it's not going to be half a season, but he's gone down again with another soft tissue. They rushed him back for the Anzac Day game alongside Merritt, and there was talk about really he's not right. He's missed games already with soft tissue, and then he comes out and plays that game, play the next week, and is now going to be missing again. So they're making decisions that are the decisions of a desperate team, and it's impacting again on performance.
And there's a lot of talk about, obviously people like Adrian Dodoro and these guys. I mean, if you look at the talent they've got, I would argue he's done a great job. I mean, Martin's a great example of a fantastic job in terms of talent.
I agree.
And I think Xavier Campbell's one of the smartest minds in our game. I love the way he goes about it. It's very approachable. I think he's one of the great people in football.
So you're putting all of it back to the coach.
So I'm putting
and the
it all
department.
back to the players. And to answer Joey's questions a little bit more strongly than I did before, spot on. That's exactly what's happened. I totally agree with what Lordy said.
By making the finals.
100%. They just thought they were going to roll in. They do a pre-season because it has to be mental. It's not a physical thing.
Yep.
It is mental for them to be where they're at now.
On the upside, I can see shades of Melbourne 2018 into 2019 about Essendon. So remember Melbourne 2018, they made the prelim and everyone thought this young group was ready to go, and then they completely fell away in 2019. It was complacency. They got smacked in a final by West Coast. They didn't address it. They didn't even they just swept it under the carpet and thought, we'll be okay.
What do you see then? When you say that, what are you seeing in Essendon?
That it's a year where it's been a mental, where they just haven't applied themselves in the right fashion, thinking it would just happen, expecting it to just continue, and taking for granted that you actually have to make it happen. But I can see Essendon from next season and the year after, because I agree with Doug. I think their core is at a good age bracket. They're highly talented, a lot of early draft picks. I can see them being a contender in the next couple of years if they learn from this season.
Melbourne made a lot of changes after that, Joey. They mightn't have watched the game, as you said, and didn't address things and all of that. But I thought their build-up to that preliminary final, I tipped them to beat West Coast in that prelim. Now, West Coast have absolutely
wiped them off the park.
Wiped them off
Then
the
what
park.
happened to them in 2019?
Well, mentally, I think that might have absolutely scarred them in terms of getting smacked in a prelim final. So there might have been a little bit of scarring. And then I think there were some reasons. I think some of their, you had Lever and May and these guys that get to the club and they weren't quite right. And then all of a sudden that builds and everything just came together. Obviously the right time.
Can you see that with Essendon then?
No, I
off
can't.
The back of this year? No.
I don't think there's similarities there.
Right.
I don't. I think it's very different. I think Melbourne was stronger in 18 than what Essendon were last year.
That's fair.
I think they were in a stronger position than where Essendon were. So I think it's different.
Very good. All right, we'll touch on West Coast after the break because you've got plenty more footy news, Damo. It's been a good start, as always, on the Midweek Rub. Of course, you can listen exclusive to the Listener app. Damo, time for some news. We touched on the Eagles briefly, but what's been the fallout from there?
It's just getting worse, isn't it? And the calls now, which are valid. What do they do as a footy club? Simpson's contracted as coach, Duck, and a man well known to your good self, and someone who's always in for the fight. But now that he's been there for some time, has reached a grand final in 15, won a grand final in 18, and is he going to be there again? History says no, given this is now seemingly a big rebuild. But again, if you want someone in your corner in a fight to the end, it's Adam Simpson.
If anyone's going to build quickly, it's West Coast for me. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I honestly think that they've still got enough there. So for me, I'm saying to Simo, and I read somewhere the last couple of days that he's in for it. If the club want him, he's in for the fight. Then I'd be re-signing him and saying, okay, you got the next 4 years to get us from where we are now to back up where we.
Does he want to do that? What if he's been offered potentially his opportunities at other clubs?
I only saw a quote from him, so I'm only taking it off the back of that. Yeah. Off the back of that quote, he said he's up for it.
He's up for it.
He's rejected North Melbourne's offers twice in the past 5 years to be their coach.
That's a little bit bigger fight.
Is that different? Is that different because at the time West Coast, you had that's a pretty good job at the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think you'd reject North again, wouldn't you, if you were him, even if he wanted to come back to Melbourne, because that is a bigger fight. We've talked about North regularly. Just on the Perth teams, we had, I think, even on this show last week, guys, discussed the possibility if the COVID type of situation happened at the other team. Now it is happening as we speak. Right now, we're talking early Wednesday afternoon. You've got Logue, Lobb, Collier, and Akers out of the starting 22 from last week's big win against Geelong, missing this Friday against North Melbourne. The opposition's obviously part of this conversation, but that's a lot of talent.
It certainly is. The opposition's probably the biggest tick for Fremantle this weekend. This is a game
North Melbourne.
Not being North Melbourne, they could lose another handful of players and still, from what we've seen, expose form and not being completely rude, if you will, to North Melbourne. But Fremantle and what they've served up with their system, it hasn't so much been about the talent they've had on the park. They went into the weekend's game without no Sean Darcy, no Damo as well. We know Fife's been missing. So I think all things equal, they could lose another handful of players and still get the win, which in the context of the season, this is a game that they sort of would be looking at with a tick regardless. So they can't afford to drop it, obviously, but it's probably come at a good time that they are playing North.
Logue got votes on Cameron last week. I thought Lobb was really good. Akers played his best game.
Yeah.
So there's three really, really important players, but they get a couple back.
Yep.
So once again, we don't know whether those players had COVID or so. Do they come back? What sort of fitness level are they going to be? Are they just close contacts? See, these are the things that we should know,
especially for your tipping, which you take so
correct.
seriously.
Well, and going really bad at it. So, you'd like to know, just so you sort of say, okay, they're coming back. How badly did they have it? How affected are they going to be? But like you said, I reckon they could maybe another 10 and still win.
Wow. They are lucky, Fremantle, to be that they actually have a lot of players not playing in their senior side that are ready. They've got like 4 or 5 top 20 draft picks, some young kids that they could pick, but they've also got some players that have played a lot of AFL, like Ethan Hughes, Joel Hamling, Connor Blakely. If they want to get a balance between some sort of senior experience that have played a lot of footy and some young kids, they're actually one team at the moment that have got some depth to bring in 5-6 players if needed.
Joey, you're actively aware in the kids' space, the kids coming through the ranks. You work in that space quite heavily and still have an awareness of it. Jason Horne-Francis got the most recent Rising Star nomination. There's 7, obviously, to this point. I think it's more open than people have been led to believe. You've got, obviously, Rochelle, Ginnivan, Dacos, Horne-Francis now, Martin, Newcomb, and Bowie.
It's a good crop. When you reel it off like that, like Nick Martin, we spoke about how talented he's been. Rochelle hit the ground running. Ginnivan's coming along. I really like John Newcomb.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a beauty.
Starting midfielder.
He's a big-bodied midfielder. His skills are better than I thought. Like, he's not just a tackling machine, as he was sort of known when he came into the comp. He's got some outside game. I really like him. And, of course, we know about how well Jake Bowie's going.
Yeah, and Dacos is probably the one at the minute that's well in front.
You still think he's in front?
He's not well in front. He's not well in front. No, I disagree with that.
They win things differently. Dacos gets uncontested possessions. Horne-Francis goes in and gets the pill, Dangerfield-like, and drags it out. I mean, unfortunately for the North Melbourne at the moment, and we won't spend too long because we've spoken about them at other weeks, but his ability to win it at the coldface, tear it out and burst away, you can tell he's going to be some sort of player. Well, and he's only 18. Unfortunately for him, I worry about him, the fact that he's almost their sort of leader. So it's like he's their leader.
You got to love the way that he handled the Jack Silvani going at him and his footy club, bloke in his 6th or 7th game or whatever, and turned around and just stood straight up for himself and the jumper. That shows a little bit extra than what we
just
probably
worry
thought.
About the pressure on him being an 18 and everyone thinking he's the saviour of this footy club. He needs others at that footy club to step up and have the same sort of attitude in the way they go about their footy.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. We won't, I'll save that question for the Daisy Duck Dive. Out of those 7, I want at the moment you to come back and say who you think will win it from here. But not who's leading right now, who you think at the end of the year will win it. But, Damo, I want to move on because we've got to talk about Dustin Martin. We believe he's going to be playing this huge game Saturday night.
We do this show early Wednesday afternoons. As we speak, it seems he'll be back for the game on Saturday against Collingwood. He was desperate to play even last week on the Friday night game in Perth. He didn't get selected. It was the right call when you think about it in hindsight.
Would have been a nice confidence booster, just sitting forward and kicking.
He would have kicked 6, wouldn't he?
Yeah. But it seems he's going to be back. And I know clubs don't revolve around one person, but Richmond in 2022 may well, in terms of how high they can go. They're going to finish in finals, I reckon. It's just how high. And with him back, I think they can reach for the sky again.
Yeah, he'll just be given a license to do what he wants, and that is drift up the ground when he wants, when he feels like he has the energy, and then. But I would assume majority of the time will be forward.
Yeah, I hope we limit the expectation of what he's going to do when he come back. We know he's a superstar.
We're not doing that.
No, I think we should, because it's just great to see him back in this. When there was talk 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks ago,
was he coming back?
If he was ever going to come back, the fact that he's out there on the park, and if it is this week in what's going to be a big game, just a big tick to see him back.
And he knows, and Richmond know as well as anyone, if he just goes and parks forward and a Maynard or someone like that just comes and props on him, I don't think that's going to do himself any favours. I think when you drift up and you're able to get a little bit of freedom and win the footy uncontested style and just get into the game, that's easier than being a stay-at-home forward. That's why, Joey, not everyone can be a forward.
No, it's hard.
Or a stay-at-home forward.
It's very hard to be a stay-at-home forward.
His competitive nature will take over at some point, even if that is the case. If he's got Maynard on him and he loses a couple of one-on-ones, he'll be straight up the field. He'll be clicking the fingers.
He'll take Maynard to where Maynard doesn't want to be.
Round he goes. So we'll still see his great attributes on show, no doubt, but just a little bit of don't put the pressure of the world on him and Richmond's hopes.
We've had a few special moments already this year with some players kicking goals. I think when Dusty kicks his first on Saturday night, it'll be some sort of snap from about 40 out where he gives a fend off. Wait, listen to the crowd and the applause that he'll get because everyone will want to see him back out there. Just lastly, Damo, Charlie Kerr. I know you've been big on him all season, but it's actually quite remarkable what he's doing this year.
It's getting better every week, isn't it? He had 7 shots at goal, albeit against North Melbourne last week. It could have been 7 or 8 goals given some other marks he dropped, but 3 goals, 4 was the return, 19 for the year. To think he's played all 7 games, to have not had a moment where it looks like his knees are going to go, which was my always greatest fear when he played those 4 games late last year. And yeah, he's almost back to that mid-2019 patch that he had.
I think he's been more consistent
this
year than he ever has in his whole career.
The high points haven't been as big, and that takes some doing, given what he was doing in that period. But yeah, I reckon it's one of the great stories to this point of 2022.
We thought he'd lose his power, didn't we? We didn't think he'd be the same athlete, but he's come back. And I mean, unless you predicted what Charlie Kerr would do, and Duck was the only one to predict that Paddy Cripps would come back to his best. That's the only way you could have put Carlton probably in your 8, wouldn't it, Daisy? If I'd have said to you in your pre-season selections, Charlie Kerr is going to get back to his best and Paddy Cripps is going to get back to his best, you probably would have put Carlton in your 8 then.
Yeah, you certainly would have. It's just fantastic for not only the Carlton Footy Club, but also Charlie as well. He was, as we all saw, when he came on, he burst onto the scene, he took a big hanger against the Pies. Everyone thought, how good's he going to be? And he's the kind of bloke that he's a bit unassuming off the field, but when the bright lights come and the big moments, he's the one who wants to be out there. So for him to spend so much time in rehab and away from the game, it was absolutely killing him, setback on setback on setback. And there was some talk and some chatter that, how many more of these will he cop before he goes, you know what, and he's a bit different. I've had enough of this crap. I don't need it anymore. So to see him back, but to get himself in a position, because it is the player who gets him mentally and physically right, to get him back to near his very best, it's awesome to see.
He's got the old-fashioned footy brain too, doesn't he, Dave? Is that fair to say?
He's just a competitor. He just loves playing footy.
Yeah.
And Mitch McGovern, just quickly, the last 24 hours, the hamstring looks like it's going to keep him out for, 3 months or something?
It could be right to the
That's
finals. And so they're going to have to get into the finals position without him. And then they've got a decision to make if they bring him back. I think they do if he's fit, but there's no guarantees about that.
Was he absolutely flying, was he?
Oh, I think he was important to their backline.
I think he's important. Going okay as a defender. Yeah. I don't think...
Can they stand up to state finals without McGovern and Oscar McDonald?
I think McGovern's coverable.
Okay, so you think Lewis Young and Waring's enough?
And the reason why I say that is because I don't think McGovern's done enough at that footy club to say that he's not.
Yeah,
he's been in and out. So, I haven't seen him...
He's been injured
no, that's what I mean. So I haven't seen him have a patch to go, he's really important to this team. I don't look at him like that.
His growth in that defensive half in the first month of the season, though, was each game he played, he was getting better, picking and choosing when to come off, when to spoil, when to mark.
So that's his position, you reckon, definitely?
I think that's definitely... He's no longer a forward.
Very good. Like it. Hey, up next, it's Daisy Duck Dive Quick 5. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. It's now time for our favourite segment.
On the Midweek Rub.
Absolutely outstanding by me.
I'm good from the waist down.
It's the Daisy Duck Dive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Damo mentioned in the news the 7 Rising Star nominees so far. So Nick Martin, Josh Rochelle, Ginnivan, Nick Dacos, Horne-Francis, Newcomb and Jake Bowie. Out of those 7, Duck, who do you think by the end of the year will win the Rising Star Award?
I'm sticking with Horne-Francis. I think what he's doing at a club where they're at and the way he's going about it, I still think he'll come out on top.
I say Nick Dacos, just purely for how good he's going. Yeah, I know the others are going really well, but I don't think there's been a player who's come in and had such an impact. Sammy Walsh maybe, but as the top pick to come in and absolutely just land on his feet, his class, he's composed. Just looking at his numbers, he's only had under 20 possessions once, had above 30, been in between that 20 to 30 possession mark. Again, in a club that's reliant on him to play well now if they're going to continue to improve.
The numbers are just too easy to look at. They're just too easy to get. They're just, I mean,
They
you can run,
are,
you
but
can
you
run
still
around
have
in
to
a
get
game.
them.
I know you still have to get him,
uses the ball well.
and he is brilliant. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying our game, the modern game that Joey keeps talking about. He thinks, you know,
Well, is it not a modern game, is it?
he thinks I played with a saber-toothed tiger.
You did play a long time ago.
yeah,
now,
you
Dustin.
saw
that line from too.
So, you know, the modern game. Well, in the modern game, guess what? Getting 20, 25 possessions is like shelling peas.
Well, Horne-Francis hasn't been doing that, though.
No, but all of his are contested.
Can I jump into the Daisy Duck Dive with your permission?
Go for it.
No.
Damo,
I
more
reckon
than
if there were no headlines leading into the season and no focus given on Dacos and Jason Horne-Francis, I reckon we'd be saying that John Newcomb's the leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that right now. Yep.
Good one, Damo.
Well-
I
well
like
done.
it.
Well, enhance the Daisy Duck Dive.
Well done.
It did indeed. Hey, question 2. Have you
Stay
had
in your lane,
Daisy?
Damo.
Did you have shoulder
why I
issues?
asked. You're
as a
making
player?
too much sense.
Yeah,
That shoulder.
I dislocated the
You've had a
shoulder in the
dislocated
first
shoulder?
minute of the first
Duck,
round.
I think you had some shoulder issues, didn't you?
Yeah,
You
I've
ba-
had
not that most listeners can't remember when you played, but for those that did, you had a shoulder injury.
The non-modern game.
back in your day, Duck.
Yes, back in my
So
day.
let's talk about Joe Daniher. He's going to miss the 4 to 6 weeks. So he's going to rehab the injury, not have surgery. Duck, you're the man to talk about this. What do you think it'll do for him and the team, and how will it go with the shoulder?
It's fraught with danger. That's what it is, because you know you can do that 4 to 6 weeks and then come back and pop out the week. You know, 2 weeks,
Is it
3
just
weeks.
a guarantee? For the layman, is it a guarantee once you've got that condition, it's coming out again?
I think more probable.
And
Yeah,
what do you do? What do you do if
highly
it comes
probable.
out?
Highly
So what happens if it
probable,
comes out
No,
again in
well-
6 or 8
Well,
weeks?
well
then
then
you're
he'll
stuffed.
go. They'll say
Then
go in
done.
for
Yep.
Yep.
So the idea of doing the rehab is to strengthen all the muscles around it that weren't as strong. Obviously, when it sits in the socket perfectly, there's no issues as to how strong it is. Once it pulls out, you stretch the muscles around it, and then the tendency for it to slip again is higher. So
Does that
that's-
repair itself over time?
Well, no. So you strengthen them. So you do all these little weird
Everything
rehab,
around it,
and you
not
try and
the-
get all the little
Someone
muscles in
mentioned-
around it.
Someone mentioned there might be a little procedure that you can have that just helps it maybe.
tighten
So
it or
but once again I don't know that. I think I just heard that somewhere, but it is fraught with danger.
Yeah, and hopefully it's on the back of.
But if you have it, if he has the op,
Yeah.
Len, I got back within 10 weeks of having the op,
But you weren't ready.
and I wasn't anywhere near ready.
Right.
But
okay.
but at least you know it's not going to fall out. You literally have a bone graft or put some hooks in there where it might not be great in terms of your mobility and whatnot, but it's less of a chance to fly out than if you do the rehab
You still
route.
kicked 7 in a final that year, Duck,
What a
when you weren't
player.
ready.
on one arm.
What a
Yeah.
player.
One arm.
And by the way,
Yeah,
that's
one
when
arm
you could.
pinned behind your
That's when
back.
you could chop arms. You could get.
So,
you know,
so in the
grabs, you
modern
could do all
game, that
sorts of
equates
things.
to about 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can they still win at Brisbane with, let's say,
I
without
think-
Joe Daniher? Worst case scenario,
Well,
can
this-
Brisbane still win the flag without Joe Daniher?
I'd be more confident with them sending him in for the op now and coming back and saying, look, we'll bank ourselves to get enough wins to get us into finals and then have you somewhat cherry ripe coming into a decent block of training, coming back. That's the way
it's
I'd
a
be
hard
looking
one.
at it.
To answer your question, I think they can. I think everyone, if you remember back to after 17 when Rance left Richmond, everyone's going Rance because he was an unbelievable player. So he's one bookend.
Yep.
And we can't lose him.
Franklin left the Hawks.
Yeah, Franklin left the Hawks. Ablett left Geelong. They won. So you can lose great, good players at your club and go on and win.
if you're a very good
Well,
team.
if you're a very good
It
team.
was,
Yeah, very
last
correct.
year, though, it was the Lions were going nicely, and then Hipwood went down, McStay went down, and they went pretty quickly. So,
Hey, by the way, Hipwood's to come back, remember?
and
So
what-
that
is that
he's-
soon? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Yeah,
next few
yeah.
weeks.
So
Yeah,
that's
he's ready
it.
to
I
go.
mean, if he comes back and he's somewhere gets somewhere near his best, then that's
Yep.
an automatic replacement for Daniher. So that might, you know what, that might almost sway them, Joey. And who knows? Have they already decided, Damo, whether they're going to have they're just going to do the
Yeah,
4 to
he's
6?
not. He's going to take the 4 to 6 option
Okay.
over the 12.
And
yeah.
they might be taking that risk because they know they've got Hipwood.
Yeah, and not rush.
Coming
not
back.
rush Joey. Make sure he's
Yeah.
strong and right. Good one. Question 3. Right now, if I asked you who is the best player in the game, there's obviously Paddy Cripps, there's Lockie Neal, there's still Oliver and Petrarca, there's Max Gawn, could be Stephen May. Who do you think right now is the best player in the game?
I think all of those. I don't
Oh,
think.
you can't. That's a duck dive.
Well, because I
Gotta
don't
pick one.
Well, right now, if I was the most,
if you were picking a side, you could pick
so
one
who-
player.
I got one pick.
They're all
the
on the
way,
wall, Duck.
so the way I look at it, the way I'll look at it is this: is that I think that so if you could say Max Gawn and May, but I think that they're that good a team. If either of one of those miss, they still win. So you got to look at the player Who?
No,
if
we're
they're
doing it the other
out
way.
of-
You pick. They're all on a wall for your team. You get to take one to put on your team today.
I'd pick Paddy
Out of
Cripps.
all those players.
If you need time to think, I'd pick Paddy Cripps in current form.
Yeah, right now.
His
this
ability
today.
to win the ball, kicking goals, his leadership, just a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and I've said that all year, but I was trying to think of.
Yeah, but Daisy said it before you just then.
No, he didn't. 'Cause
Daisy didn't
I've
sit on the
said it on
fence.
numerous other platforms in the last week. by the
Daisy
way.
said it with conviction and commitment.
I wanted
And
Paddy
usually have
Cripps.
given us an
I
answer.
wanted you
Duck.
on,
I
Duck.
also
Giving
wanted
us one. They're all on the wall. Pick
I
one.
also
Yeah,
wanted
stop
to.
sitting on
Not
the
that
fence,
hard.
Duck.
Pick one. You're the
Stop
captain.
padding.
It's an opinion game.
You're the captain in the schoolyard. Pick one.
I also wanted to drag out the segment a little. But no, Paddy. I agree. It's Paddy Cripps.
So now you just
After
follow
all
me
that,
in.
yeah, just copy
I said it
Daisy.
once and you just copying me.
Mate, by the way, I said Paddy Cripps at the start of the year when all you dingbats said he couldn't get back to Joey,
Here he goes.
Mr. Modern Game over here. You know what he said about Paddy Cripps?
No.
The modern game's gone past him. And guess what? He caught up to it.
He did, and he's going past it. He's
They all remember everyone said, "Oh, the modern game, the 666 and this, Paddy Cripps. He just can't adapt to the new modern game."
very good. Hey, Damo, seeing you were so good with the first question, can I fire one at you?
Am I allowed to ask Duck?
No, Duck's
Duck and I are gone. We're off with the ferries.
Duck's annoying me.
Stop
Right,
it. We're going
Damo.
to grill on
What
the
I
hill.
will do,
Let's
Joey,
roll,
I'll
Duck.
give you an answer. I won't,
Yes,
I
thank
won't
you.
wait.
Thank you. And don't reference the other things you've said in the past to bring them back. Right now, as we speak, how many clubs will have a new coach, do you think, in 2023? You don't have to say who.
Yeah, you
name.
do.
We don't
Name
know.
them.
I'm a bit like Duck on this one. I find it awkward to talk
I know.
about, but
That's
what I
why we're
will
not
say,
names, we're not
we
being
give
specific.
answers. We give answers. I don't see Stuart Dew being there at the Gold Coast, and given what Leon Cameron has said and what his club has said about him, I don't see him being at GWS either, even if they were to make a final, an elimination final. So they're the two obvious ones. I think it's a watch this space on Essendon, and that's of their own doing now with Rutten.
So at least two.
I'd say two to answer your question with the watch on Essendon.
Nice. Very good. Well done, Damo. That's how you
Well
answered it. Didn't even need specifics, but you gave them to me anyway. Love it. Hey, up next, we're going to take a look at the round 8 action, and we're going to always hold ourselves accountable and just take a listen back to how we went with our tips, in particular Ducks tips, last week. Let's start with the Freo Geelong game, please. Jilly, what did the boys
I
tip?
still think they're a sneaky chance. I've just got a feeling about the Dockers.
I think the ground's going to suit them. They're a really strong defensive side. They can squish the Cats in. The weather apparently is going to be wetter than an otter's pocket. So I like everything about Fremantle this week.
Not a speck of rain, by the way.
It was windy. It was windy.
Hey, very good by you two. Duck and I thought Geelong, down at Geelong, obviously don't lose too often, but Freo got the job done.
I think I still tipped the Cats, actually, Joey, but thanks for playing that audio.
You said they were a sneaky
Yeah, I
chance,
did,
and then in
yeah.
the end you tipped
I
Geelong.
wasn't
You're
brave
right.
enough to tip them.
I was invested in
You
them
were,
and very,
actually.
very
Yeah.
happy with their...
We're just fudging a little bit, Damo.
Yeah,
You
I
didn't
know.
have to go.
But
with that.
I'd like to be honest, Joey.
But then the Sydney-Brisbane game was an interesting one. I think, for what it's worth, Brisbane at the moment, I don't think they have any holes in their game. I think they just tick every box to Brisbane Lions. So I think at the moment they're the better team than the Sydney Swans.
Yep.
So I'm going to tip Brisbane.
Nice.
They ticked every box indeed. They are the second best team in the competition.
Choosing which audio to bring in,
That's-
Big
that's
Jason.
the
He's the
audio.
captain.
Can I tip Brisbane. And then the St Kilda Port Adelaide game. It was always a bit of a tricky game, but here's how one of us predicted it.
Is Port Adelaide the outsider against St Kilda? It'd have to
Absolutely.
be.
Yes,
wouldn't
I'll
it?
give you that one. Damo again on fire.
All right.
Where's,
Jill, can we throw to a
Where's Duck's audio?
positive for me?
Where's Duck's audio?
Crickets. None.
Did he say West Coast for half a
I
chance?
think we did a roughie. We did an outsider.
Is this you coming back at me, Joey, not throwing to some positive
Oh,
audio
we tried to find
because
some.
of the Cripps thing?
Who did you? Do you want us to play? Hey, Jill, have you got the audio of Duck tipping Melbourne to beat Hawthorn? Have you got that audio?
No, West Coast were competitive, though. They gave you
You know what?
You could rip your ticket up at the
You
5
know
minute
what?
mark of
Amazing
the
thing,
first.
10 minutes in, I actually went to bed.
Hey, Duck, to get your
the
confidence
karaoke
back,
bar.
mate, because you need a bit of a confidence boost. You can pick which game you want to talk about for round 8. Which one tickles your fancy?
Okay, so Port Adelaide, Western Bulldogs.
That's a good one.
Now,
Yeah.
that's a
Good one to choose.
it's
And
not
you
a,
are.
and
hey,
it's
Port
not
have won-
a-
Port have won 2 in a
It's
row.
not a half volley.
No.
I'm tipping Port Adelaide
Ooh,
to
I like
stay,
Get the roll
stay
going.
on a
Yes.
roll.
This could
Hey.
turn your season around,
This-
Duck.
And the Bulldogs, Bulldogs have been okay. I don't think they're playing their best footy, but I think Port Adelaide will make it 3 on the trot. And if we get some audio next week, we'll say, I thought Port could get on a roll.
He did say that, Julie. Keep that one in the record books.
I like that you're with me on this one, Duck. I also like Port.
Ooh.
So get that one, Julie.
Very
Put
cool.
mine first, so it sounds like yeah.
I'm sticking with the Western Bulldogs. I think they're starting to build pretty nicely. I don't know whether they'll get Tim English or Alex Keith back this week, but they're certainly not far away. I think they can just start to climb the ladder.
Surely Port
next few
Adelaide
weeks.
internally is talking about that prelim final loss.
Would they mention it?
Have to. I don't think the Bulldogs would be because they obviously went a week further and it was more about when they play Melbourne and that
How do
sort of.
they address it though? It just brings back
If
bad
you have
memories.
any sort of pride, you go out there and you try and you can't rectify the result
No.
then, but you can turn.
Dixon a chance, by the way?
Hopefully,
Someone said...
you have to use that.
No,
for,
not for seniors. Possibly
Well,
Sanford.
someone said Sanford. Why would you bring him back through the
He's missed a lot of
You
footy,
just
Doug.
throw him straight into the
Very
mix.
underdone.
do you reckon they'd be talking about that?
In.
No,
You
I
don't-
don't reckon Ken Higley would mention it.
No, I can't see why you would.
I would.
No.
Days.
Don't want to.
Surely
you
the
don't want to
players
dig up those.
Oh.
You don't want to dig up
Like
those.
more.
You don't want to dig up those skeletons. I wouldn't have thought.
I would.
Would you?
Well,
They've already
I-
addressed
whatever
it, Doug.
They addressed it last year.
100%. You'd say, you know
This is
what?
a chance.
This is a chance.
What
This
can-
gets us back on track and a chance to redeem a little bit of
Yeah.
what got taken away from you last year.
I like it, Duck. That's
All right, eh? All right. What about?
Superstar.
What about
Old school attitude from
Yeah, it is,
Doug.
isn't it? Yeah, the old back in the old days.
Oh,
That's
sorry,
the way we've done.
let's
The
mollycoddle and say-
non-modernised way of doing it, Joey.
Let's mollycoddle then in the modern game and say, oh, you never played him last year. Let's forget about that.
I love it when Duck's in a mood. This is good.
does
All right.
Forget about that game.
Let's keep rolling. Richmond, Collingwood. This is a beauty. This is a
Yeah.
big one. Saturday night. We believe the return of Dusty. Daisy, Richmond, Collingwood.
I'm going to tip Richmond. I think they got too much firepower up front. I think the Pies are going along nicely and probably exceeding a lot of expectations. I just think from what we saw Richmond's forwards on the weekend and the Pies, although the defence is okay, a Rewald on a Majdon, that's sort of all at the minute. That's sort of the question mark for me where the Pies can be exposed. And I think obviously Dusty's down there as well with Rewald and Lynch.
Yep.
That's too many questions to answer for the Pies.
They're my certainties this week for this conversation, Joey. Richmond to beat
Certainties.
Collingwood. I love what the Pies are doing. I love the energy they're displaying and the way McRae is coaching them. But I just think with Richmond's getting to a crucial juncture of what they want to do this year, Dusty back as we expect to be the case as we speak. Big game for them.
I'm going to back the Pies in. I think the Pies can win this one.
I think Duck wants some audio for next week. Yeah,
No,
it's a good one, yeah.
I'm going to go with the Pies. Let's be honest. Richmond played a waffle team last week. They had a very easy win. Collingwood were made to work for their win, and I just think they'll be ready for what they're about to face.
I like it. I must admit, I keep underestimating Collingwood, so I'll tip Richmond, and Collingwood could prove me wrong once again. But let's go to the other big game. I think this is a beauty. Giants, Geelong at Manuka this weekend. Geelong disappointing against Fremantle. The Giants look like they found their mojo. I did that game.
Morals.
They were awesome, the Giants.
Morals are the Cats. Absolute morals. Win.
Good.
Sit and steer sort of job.
Wow. There it is.
Steer.
I
Yeah.
like this.
I'm not sure, but the fact that it's in Canberra, I'm going to go. I'll probably stay with the Cats.
I'm going to go Cats, but I'm not nowhere near as confident as Daisy.
I actually don't know.
Just trust the Cats a little bit more. But GWS, what a response!
You know what? I think the Giants might be too quick for the Cats. Giants have got some speed now through with Kelly and Whitfield and Canelio running back to his. I think maybe the Giants at Manuka could win this one.
There you go.
Last one, Melbourne, St Kilda. Can anyone see the Saints cause an upset?
If the Saints are able to do what Hawthorn did against Melbourne last week for a longer period of the game than the Hawks ultimately did, I reckon this one's going to be closer than what a lot of people think. They've got the sort of game plan, the way they bring it forward, that I think that it can do what the Hawks did to Melbourne for a period that worked, Duck. They worked out the May problem.
Is May in?
Yeah.
Yes.
May Lever both in?
Yes, both May and Lever both playing. And Gawn and Petrarca and Oliver.
Yeah, no. I think Melbourne will be too strong.
Going for Melbourne, but I think it'll be close.
I think Melbourne have added an extra string to their bow in how they're winning games against Hawthorn. Hawthorn were never going to win that game purely for in that last quarter if there was going to be a response and they were going to try and take the game on and move it quick. Melbourne just shut up shop and they take 6-7 minutes off the clock and don't give you a chance. And I think they'll speak about that this is the first time they're playing some real opposition, as we've all called it in the media. I think they come out and they flex and get it done and show why they're the champs.
But Carlton Adelaide's an interesting game. I know Adelaide were really disappointing last week, but we've seen their best. Carlton, if they are slightly off,
The bounce back factor from Adelaide, they were disappointing last week.
Absolutely. I think this is a real 50-50 game, this one.
And I tell you what, if Adelaide can win this, I had a look. Adelaide have still got to play North Melbourne and West Coast twice. They've got North Melbourne and West Coast twice to come in the run home. So if Adelaide can just win a game or two against the odds, I'll tell you what, they might be hanging around the bottom part of the 8, around that 8 spot up for a few more weeks.
If the Blues are going to be in the 8 this year, though, this is a game they have to win.
Yeah, very good. I love it. Been another great show. Thanks for listening. Of course, don't forget you can listen to every game across round 8 this weekend live on Triple M and the Listener app, starting with Friday night, Damo, at the Judd Cave.
Yeah, we're back there. He's making his
Judd
Triple M comeback. The judge.
Find out what he's been doing.
A
The
bit
Judd
of tennis, I think, before it, I think is the plan too. So
wow, how good. Sure, there'll be some nice bottles of red as well.
That's usually the case.
That's with Das, Howie, Brownie, Damo and Juddy, and then heading to the Adelaide Oval for Port Adelaide v the Western Bulldogs. Hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the Midweek Rub.